So this is what we're making, a set of pearl earrings in a cup with a pattern. So the metal I'm using for my discs is 0.7 of a millimeter thick, and it's sterling. And I'm going to cut 2 discs 13 millimeters diameter. So I'm using a Pepe Tools disc cutter, and it's an Imperial, but it's 12.7 millimeters diameter is half an inch, and that's close enough. So look down through the hole, make sure you can see the metal all the way around, otherwise you'll have a flat spot on the edge of your disc. Make sure that the cutter fits the hole and the wide part of the cutter is down. And the good thing about these is the cutter and the disc just drop through, so there's no trouble getting them out. So now, before I dome these, I'm going to anneal them and put a pattern on them. And then this will just go in the scrap. So to anneal these, we'll just heat them to a dull red. You can use any torch for this. When you see a dull red, stop. And you can see that this is sterling because it turns a dark gray when it's heated up. If it were fine silver, it wouldn't change color. So now we'll just quench these in water. And dry them off. So just measure the diameter of your disc. Mine is 12.85. Divide that by 2, and that's 6.43, and you can set your calipers. And then you just don't pickle these yet. We want the oxide on so that we can see. So you just hook your calipers over the edge with one jaw and drag the back of the other one across. Turn it 90 degrees, mark it again, and you have the center of the disc. So just to make my life easier, I'm going to put a texture mark on that scratch because it's easier to see. I mean, you can see the scratch if you get the light right on it, but otherwise it kind of disappears. So now I'm going to put my pattern on there, and I'm just going to use a putty knife because it has a straight edge, and a chasing hammer. So I'll just put that on the mark, and I have a nice line, and then I'm just visually going 90 degrees, and then in the middle of those, and in the middle of those. And you can put as many or as few marks on. I'm just going to stop at that point because that's enough. And I'll do the next one, and then we'll dome them. Now we're going to use a doming block, and we just make sure that our disc fits in the depression. And then I'm going to use a nylon punch because I don't want to mark the inside, and I want to keep my marks. And just hammer it until it goes to the bottom, and that's all of the cup I'm going to use. We could make it deeper, but really this is enough. And you can hear it when it hits the bottom of the depression. So we're ready to drill the holes in them. So I'm just putting my discs on my bench plate. If you don't have a bench plate, you can use a bench block. Just don't do it on the wood or you'll damage your wood. And I have a mark where the center is already, so I'm just going to put my punch there, give it a wrap, and you can see the bump on the other side. So that will thin that quite nicely, and then it's just a matter of putting a piece of timber on your peg to protect it. And we're going to use 0.8 diameter sterling wire and drill a 0.8 hole. We want a nice fit because we're going to solder the wire in place. So a little bit of beeswax, and we just rest the drill bit in the depression, spin it up, and it goes through just that quickly because we've thinned it out when we put our mark in it. So that's it. So now I'm using 0.8 of a millimeter round sterling and 45 millimeters long, so we'll just cut it with side cutters. Cut one and then use it as your pattern for the next one. That way they're the same length. So the easy way to figure out how much wire to leave sticking through is just to put the disc on a charcoal block, hold your wire in your third hand, and let it touch the block, so that way it's just flush with the edge of the disc. So then we'll just flux, and I'm going to use a 3 millimeter long piece of hard solder. And we just place it so it touches the cup and the wire. And once again, we can use any torch for this. I'll use the easy torch again just because I have it. So I'm on the opposite side of where the solder is. And that's lovely. So now we can quench it in water and pickle it. Do them both. So you can see how far the wire is sticking through. It's just flush with the edge of your cup. And we'll just take our chain nose pliers and straighten it so it's sticking straight out. And if the back is a little bit off, we just straighten it too. And normally I use the parallel jaw pliers for this, just because it's easier to see when you have it straight. Now we're ready to pickle and polish. All right, we're out of the pickle, and you can see that they're ready to be polished. We're just going to hold this in our fingers with the end of the wire sticking through, and we just file that flat, and you can see the end when it's nice and flat. Then we'll take our sanding stick and sand the end. And now I'm just going to take some bail bending pliers, and I'm going to use the 5mm end, and I'll just hold the earring and push that over. And that's it. It's finished. Well, we could put a little kick on the end. Just as a reminder if it starts falling out of your ear, but I think you'd know. And then I'll just put it in a tumbler for a few minutes and do the other one, and then we'll be ready to set our pearl. Ta-da! All right, we have our shapes, and we're ready to go in the tumbler, and I'm just going to put them in. I think I'll put them in for about half an hour because it'll toughen up, harden the stems, the wires. So here we are out of the tumbler, and I'll dry them off and we'll glue our pearls on. All right, the pearls I have are 6mm diameter, and they're half drilled, but I'm going to use a 1mm drill bit just to open the hole up a little. And I just hold them in my fingers to do that. And I'm just going to use 5-minute epoxy. And it's 2-part epoxy, so we want an equal amount of glue from each of the 2 parts. And I use cocktail toothpicks because they're pointed on the end. And that way I can get the glue down inside the pearl. So mix the material well, and you have 5 minutes. So you should be able to get it mixed, get it in the pearl, put it on the earring and do the second one. And I just put a spot on the hole, push it down inside with the toothpick, and then another little spot on the outside. And then I just slip it on the peg. And push it down. And that's it. Now, it needs to sit for 5 minutes, and I'll just drop it into this cross-lock tweezers that I'm going to use the other end, the end with the teeth, to hold the second one. This one just sits in the little depression. Ta-da! So we let it sit, come back in 5 minutes. I always leave the toothpick in the glue so that I can check here that the glue is dried and not disturb the pearls. Alright, our glue's dry, and these are our earrings. And with the shiny inside of the cup, it reflects the pearl, so it actually looks pearlescent. And that's the shape. I'm happy with that. Simple little project.